At that time, I remember the high demand language in our state are French, Arabic, and Somali language in Lewiston area. And time has sure changed. Now we received more and more diverse language needs. And right now we are actually covering 38 on-site languages. I say on-site meaning we have local presence. We have right now more than 100 interpreters working with our company and providing the 38 languages. We can dispatch them to your company, to your school, to work with your clients or students or patients. And we also have a remote interpreting piece, and the remote interpreting, we cover more than 200 languages. So if you need any languages under the sun, just come to us and we will try our best to cover. But definitely for the languages that we see in our state, we are pretty much able to cover 100% completely. So another piece we are doing is document translations. So if you want to outreach to the community, have diverse culture background or linguistic background, document translation, translate your flyer, translate your document, that's literally the best way to reach out the community.
Hello, everybody. My name is Lloyd Otero. I'm the community manager of WJZP 107.9. A raise of hands of anyone who has heard of us. Okay, so that's a good number. So we serve the greater Portland area. We're a community-based radio station. We started as of jazz, but now we have hip hop, the clean version, and hip hop and funk and so many other genres. So please check us out if you have a moment. So I just want to talk about the start a little bit of the station. It started with just an idea, an inception. Dennis Ross, for those of you that may or may not know him, he's a very vibrant person. And he started that as just having a place, right? He just wanted a place. He loves music and he wanted to connect with other folks. So he started this 20 years ago, and now it's still going. And we do community events. We work with the community and organizations and partner with people that really are not only passionate about jazz, but also passionate about connecting with everyone in the community. And I say everyone, not just people of color. Everyone is welcome, right? Because music is universal. So I am so happy to be part of this station. I've been with them for 7 years. I've been in Maine for almost 9 years. And he's opened a whole world to me. So I'm so in debt to him and to the community of WJZP. I welcome anyone who is longing for community or who wants to partner with us to reach out to me. We're very friendly, I promise. And we're super fun folks. So please reach out if you want to partner with us. We always have amazing events that we partner with organizations with. So I hope to connect with some of you, and please tune in to the station 107.9.
Good morning again, Molly Lewis and Semro, Pine Tree Institute with the Recovery Friendly Workplace Initiative. So Recovery Friendly Workplace is a statewide free Maine initiative that certifies companies of any kind in any industry that are doing two things. One is supporting their current employees who are impacted by substance use disorder, and the other is intentionally engaging, employing, and working with people who are impacted by substance use disorder. We know that this is an incredibly prevalent issue in the state of Maine and nationally. And we also know that people who are impacted by this are our friends and neighbors, and in many cases ourselves. So recovery-friendly workplaces are those that are intentionally changing their culture to be more inclusive and more accepting of folks. We work with these companies by offering training, 4 core trainings that range from substance use disorder 101 to how to look at your policies and protocols and see if they're recovery friendly. What accommodations could you potentially make? In addition, we connect companies with local resources. Our partnership with Portland Recovery Community Center means we are tied into a network of recovery community centers around the state. And so when we are working with companies, we're able to offer them connection to whatever is in their area that could potentially positively impact the lives of their employees and their employees' families. We will work with companies in any industry, and our approach is completely customized. So we know that each company has completely different resources, sizes, makeups, licensing requirements, and we assess that at the outset, and then we can look at what really could each company do. So some companies may pursue things like offering flexible scheduling for someone to leave an hour early and go to an AA meeting, and then come in late the next day. Some companies might implement full peer support programs within their companies, and others may explore fair chance hiring policies where you can, use a certain framework to assess specific findings on a criminal background check and still consider hiring someone. So it is completely flexible, it's completely customized, and it's 100% free. And we are always looking for new companies to work and partner with across the state of Maine.
Is that working? There we go. Okay. So I'm Shay Bellis, and I own Navitor, which is an aggregate of tour guides and experiences throughout the entire state of Maine. We launched in 2021, and it was our vision to deliberately, strategically, and intentionally include everyone. We wanted to disrupt that Maine is the whitest state. We're only lobster and lighthouses. We are only Portland and Acadia, and we are only one, maybe two seasons. So in order to do that, we scoured Maine to find all the different types of people. We have guides on our platform that are blind, that are deaf, all religions, genders, age, ethnicity. And one of the ways we sort of show off Navitor is we just go to our guide page and scroll, and you just are like, whoa, there's a lot of diversity here in Maine. And the reason for doing that is we know and recognize that Maine, while it is one of the whitest states, we have a lot of diversity, we have a lot of culture. And if we can show that to the world, maybe more people will feel comfortable coming and visiting and falling in love with the state that we all love to live, work, and play in. And we work with corporations and organizations that maybe from a recruitment perspective might book a guide that looks like the person they're recruiting to go out on a paddle or go fishing or go for a hike, so they can connect in with the community. So that's just a little bit about Navitor. What I would like us to do now is I'm going to ask, I just deleted my notes. I'm not savvy enough to undo that wicked quick, but while they're answering, I will fix that. So the question that I want to ask of the panelists, and then I want to open up to all of you, because I feel like we can all learn from each other. What is one of the ways that your organization has been able to successfully engage with people in the community that are maybe diverse to your organization or just diverse in general? And you can all decide who wants to go first, and I'll find my notes.
So part of Maine Career Exploration is having that supportive adult with the young person to be able to explore their interest and passion. And some of that also comes with the young person teaching the supportive adult, this is my interest, this is my community, this is how I want to be connected. And that supportive adult saying, yes, I'm going to dive into this with you, and really opening up their own horizon and really opening up their own understanding of their community. We've had a lot of young people not only dive into things that they're interested in for careers, but things that they're interested in within their passions. And that's made a huge difference for young people, seeing that that exists within their community. And this is a piece that I can really be a part of here. I think something that's also really great with having that supportive adult with that young person is that they're able to go out into the community and interact with business owners, community resources. They're able to interact with, maybe the young person is involved within a certain cultural group, whichever it may be, and they're able to find that connection, and they're able to provide that opportunity for that young person to connect with maybe an employer or maybe a business or maybe a nonprofit who they feel very passionate about. And I feel that that has brought such great value, not only to the young person to feel that sense of belonging, but for that community to grow and grow around that young person and be there for that young person.
Well, my answer to your question is literally that's what we do. So we are just very proud to be able to provide some of the first career opportunities to our to new Mainers. So when they come to the U.S., they their previous career can be very impressive. They are doctors, engineers, teachers in their country, but when they come to the U.S., their credential are somewhat undervalued, let's say this way. So we are here to utilize their language skills to bridging a communication gap. So we provide trainings to our new interpreters and make sure they understand the role of interpreter and the practice and a code of ethics, so they can go out, go to the community and provide services. Many of our interpreters interpreting become their lifelong career. But some of them may not. So they may start with interpreting because they want to go to school to advance themselves to become, to have a different career. And that's totally fine. So they start with language partners interpreting for us for the first maybe 1 or 2 years while they're in school. And then they go on to become, have the career of their dream, and that's fine and that's great. We definitely celebrate that. So that's what we just proud to be able to provide many of the new Mainers the first job opportunities.
So we're in a unique space in that oftentimes people ask us, well, why you and not Spotify, right? And so, we're not in competition with Spotify. So I think the value of having a community radio station is it's of the community. And because of that, what we do is we do in-person events and we talk. So last year we launched a listening tour where we actually had one-on-one coffee with folks. We talked to them. We asked them what was working and what was not working for them. What did they want to listen to? What was the programming that would excite them the most? And so this year is very much about sort of implementing those strategies with a tiny team and trying to bring in those asks and wants that the community has or wanted and envisioned and dreamed of, right? And so for us is very much like for most people, yes, there's emails, there's surveys, there's a whole bunch of things that you can use. But at the end of the day, what has been the most effective in terms of how do we serve the community is asking the community. And that is done through in-person events, which we do. That is done through literally reaching out to the community and saying, hey, do you have a minute on the phone or on a Zoom call or in person, right? So for us is basically going to the community and asking them, what do you want and how can we serve you? And that has been instrumental in us keeping our lights on. And it's also been instrumental in pretty much creating and continuing to build this community that we so strive for to be absolutely inclusive, right? Not just, this group or that group, but every single one. Because like I said, music is universal. And we want to make sure that it's accessible to everyone and that everyone can see themselves enjoying it as much as we do. So.
Oh, there I am. Okay. So we work with businesses. So I think the degree to which we can reach people in the community is dependent on how our businesses do that we're partnered with. But a few things I can say about that. recovery-friendly workplace is predicated on companies that have the desire and the interest to become more inclusive. And that can be a jumping off point, I think. To name some pieces about marginalization directly, I think that we are, of course, working on the general marginalization of people impacted by substance use disorder in the state of Maine. But there are absolutely ethnic and racial dimensions to that that are really important to name and to know. So we know that statistically, for example, Native Americans are at much higher risk for substance use disorder than many other races and ethnicities. And then when we talk about things like fair chance hiring, we also know that while statistics show that white Americans begin using substances often earlier and have actual higher rates of substance use disorder, that criminalization of people of color for substance use related offenses is much higher statistically. And so there are absolutely, I think, important deeper dimensions to substance use disorder to understand. But at baseline, what we are trying to do is work with companies to be more inclusive. And we've seen programs like this be a jumping off space for much larger conversations than just about substance use disorder. Often when we're talking to people, we get into deeper conversations themselves about mental health, trauma, a lot of different pieces about general inclusivity and employee wellness. And so while we don't work directly with individuals and rather with companies, I think that is the larger container we're trying to create for change.
They're a tough act to follow. Navitor is a little less serious, but I'll give us some examples. A lot of folks in the state of Maine have been very curious about the Wabanaki and the indigenous people and tribes right here in the state of Maine. Those of you who were able to be here yesterday morning got the benefit of meeting Dwayne Toma. He is a Navitor guide, and we've done many projects with him, bridging the divide and bringing the Wabanaki to places like Portland Trails. Portland Trails was honored to have Dwayne do a recorded tour so you all can listen to him at any time that you want to go on a hike. And there's a lot of those different types of bridges that we're making with all kinds of cultures so that people feel invited and welcome, and they're able to share their culture and their love of Maine, whether that's a certain fly fishing fly or weaving a basket with a Penobscot Nation tribal member. So I want to open this up to all of you. Are there examples of ways that you've been successful? One of the things you often hear about, why is a workplace or why is a community or town not diverse? And people will say, well, we want it to be diverse, but there's no diversity. It's Maine. And we all can call BS because we can look around this room and say, not true. But you have these resources here now that maybe you weren't aware of, to if you want to reach out and make your workplace or community more diverse. But what are some of your success stories? Does anybody want to share their success?
Ruth Ann Haley from Northern Light at Mercy. We found that there was real limited English acquisition in town and maybe in the in the state. We offer our employees English and digital literacy during work, and they get paid for it. And I think that I'll challenge other employers to also offer English classes and digital literacy to expand your workforce.
Anybody else? I do want to get in my steps, but okay. Did that trigger any additional thoughts from any of you on that particular question? No. Oh,
I'm Michael Nostrovicki from Maine Health. And I have, this is not necessarily something that we're developing, but I'm just very curious if, I think this is probably more for the language partners and if they already do something like this. But to build on what the person from Northern Light said, is there's the occupational language, particularly in healthcare. And I've been an academic in academics for several years, working with nursing students. And unfortunately, there's difficulty with taking either some of the entrance exams to get into those programs, such as the TEAS or the HESI exams, that you have to have proficient English reading, writing. But students can pass those exams and they do come into the programs and then they can be successful and they start to hit the clinical units. And there's a certain level of stress, there's fast communication, they haven't had a lot of practice in that setting. And I'm trying to come up with some way of helping not only these learners in colleges and universities who are, have difficulty while they're learning and then can no longer continue in their program because clinically they've not been successful. Or in the clinical setting, when we hire these folks and they're hired in and they do well, and then they get into the clinical setting and there's communication concerns either, and they're just not able to be addressed. And I feel like that's the equity piece that's not being addressed.
And I hear you. What we have been doing is that we actually just in January, we provided a community interpreting course to our to the community. So we have 20 students graduate from the program, and when they come to during the graduation ceremony, actually somebody from Maine Health actually come to celebrate with us. And I want to have somebody from medical field to come to talk to the student because I want the student to know there are career paths they can go. They can either, if they love to become medical interpreter, that requires medical interpreting training. And if you want to become a legal interpreter working at state main courts, and there's a legal interpreting path that you need to go through. So to your question, so we always actively engaging with medical professionals. If you want to come in to talk to our interpreters, and we provide terminology trainings, we provide just some sort of a workshop, just give us the interpreters the way to learn the medical field. And another way we do is that we have tiers, interpreters structure. So when they are community interpreters, we're not going to send them to medical settings, obviously. So the more they learn and the more they hear from the medical professionals and to advance their training, they will be more confident and provide high quality services in different scenarios, basically.
Thank you. We have another question. All right, Stephen over here.
Not a question, but just to answer you. I'm here with the Greater Portland Immigrant Welcome Center. I was just talking to a friend here, just made. We have an amazing program, all free. It's called iEnglish. And they go from basics of learning English to intermediate to conversational. What we also have is Engine, which is an amazing software that we have. We have a laboratory there too, where you can learn English more. It's more audio than phonics, but we have over 1,000 courses that's been pre-recorded that, let's say someone wants to get into healthcare, and all the vocabulary, all of the etiquette, all of that is done, like, let's say 20 classes. And it all depends on how fast you want to do it or how not fast you want to do it. We do work with Northern Lights. We also work with Maine Health. We partner with you guys to have our ESL teachers come and teach as well. But if you're looking for specific like vocabulary in these specific fields, there is such thing that it could be done for your colleagues or employers, whomever they are. Thank you.
Thank you. Some great resources in this room.
Did I make it? Great. Throw in there as well, partnering with your local schools for extended learning opportunities for young people who are within, your local high schools and things like that. Creating a specific class within an LMS portal, like an online learning management portal, and having a supportive adult who's at the school to be able to guide the young person through that opportunity. The younger that folks can see this opportunity for them, and the more that young people can get the opportunity to build those skills, even within high school. I know it's really hard sometimes within the medical field to get job shadow opportunities and opportunities within healthcare, but it's that opportunity to connect with your school and build that specific thing for some of your pathways that may be really worthwhile. And a young person may not even have thought that that was an option for them, but now this is available within a community that feels very safe, and a community that they know, and a supportive adult who they know will get them from point A to point B. And really tapping into the schools and providing that opportunity. And what we're able to do with Career Exploration with some of our partners is to be able to create a platform and to create an online class for young people to work with a supportive adult, or to create that job shadow opportunity that starts to implement some of the small pieces for young people to build upon, so that it doesn't feel as inundating as much later if they're making
Your
a
call
shift,
has
or
been
if they're
forwarded to
making
voicemail.
a true
The
dive
person
into
you're trying to reach is not available. At the
just putting
tone,
that out as an
please record your
additional
message.
opportunity,
When you have
because young
finished
people,
recording, you may hang up.
Hi, it's just me. Sorry,
scaffolding
you
platform
probably in
in
a
order to
meeting
get from
now.
point A to point B.
I just got excited
Adults
when
who
I
need
saw
the
this. I've
scaffolding
been in
platform to get
that
from point A to point
Inclusion
B.
Main
And the
conference,
earlier that we
so
can do this for young people,
I had
the
my
more
phone on
advantageous it will be.
silent. All right, I will
Great,
talk to
thank
you
you
later.
so much.
Okay, bye.
So one of my favorite quotes is, if you don't deliberately, strategically, and intentionally include, you will accidentally exclude. And so these organizations are built on inclusivity. And so I'm curious if you can tell us some of the ways that you ensure that any of the community events or your organization, whether that's your building or your website, what are some of the things that you do or did to intentionally, deliberately, and strategically include? What did you think about, and what actions did you take?
Being a statewide program, it was really important to us to reach as many people as possible and as many communities as possible. And one of the ways that we're building on to do that is really trying to work with every different kind of industry. We know that if we, some of our employers are very eager and obvious to jump on board, like our recovery community centers or certain treatment centers, for example, or they want to be recovery friendly workplaces. But we really wanted to make sure that this program is accessible to anybody that wants to be a part of it, and that we're able to reach as many employees through their employers as possible. So we've really been building and trying to sort of focus on the fact that we have of course, people like treatment centers and mental health providers, but we also have construction and manufacturing. We have hospitality and the restaurant industry. We have large educational organizations and healthcare organizations that are all recovery-friendly workplaces. So we really try to, anytime we're doing outreach or talking to the community, really hit the point that this is for every industry and this is for every kind of profession you can imagine, because regardless, if you run a business, your staff is impacted by substance use disorder to some degree. So we want to make sure that everybody gets the message that this is not for one kind of business, one kind of employer, one level of resources, or one size. This is really for every Mainer.
Thank you. One of my shortcomings when wanting to build this intentionally inclusive company is I didn't know everything. And so I was really curious, how were we going to partner with the blind community? And so what I did is I reached out to the Division of Blind and Visually Impaired at the state of Maine and said, teach us. How can Navitor be more inclusive? And the beauty that came out of that is an intern who just graduated with a marketing degree. And I thought, how can a blind person do marketing? Like, all of my ignorance around that was there. And we did an interview, and we hired him for the summer as an intern, and my eyes were completely opened to just watch how he worked and for me to learn. And he didn't have to explain how he did his job, but he did a fabulous job. And so I think it starts with education. And so for me with that particular piece, it was reaching out to those who know more, and they are wicked helpful and wanted to teach me everything, created training for our seeing guides to offer tours that are certified, accessible for the blind and visually impaired. And so there's a lot of doors. So I would just say, reach out to the communities that already exist and just show up and say, teach me. And they do.
So when we talk about inclusion, I want to touch base on ASL. So we definitely, so this is literally what we, our mission is to bridging communications, break down language barriers. So when we see there's a need in ASL languages, what we do is that we add service line. So this ASL is a new service line that we started actually last year. This is definitely new territory for us because since day one, we have very much spoken language focused, but we see there's a shortage in ASL language service in our state. So before I go on to give you an example, I want to ask if you have worked with a CDI or if you have heard the term CDI. Not many. CDI is Certified Deaf Interpreter. So before I started offering their services, I didn't know. And then when client request CDI, and I was wondering, CDI, if the interpreter knows ASL, will be enough communication between the two, the client and the provider, but that's not the case. I was actually in a state refugee conference last month, I believe. Language partners provide interpreting services we provide a team of interpreters, CDI and ASL interpreters. And the panel speakers are two sisters. They're from Africa and they are new refugee to our state, and they are deaf. And it's a very sad story. So basically, there's two sisters growing up without proper education in sign language at all. So the only person they can talk is between these two sisters. And then when they come to the US, obviously the ASL interpreter will not be able to communicate with the two sisters, but CDI can. So when we do the interview and I see CDI, the two sisters is signed to the CDI, and CDI then signed to the ASL interpreter, and the ASL interpreter then interpreted into the audience in spoken language. So it's really a beautiful thing to watch. You will see the seamless flow of communications going on here. And the reason CDI can communicate with the two sisters is because the culture, they have the same culture background. They understand the deaf culture. And because we provided the team of the interpreters for those two sisters, they were able to pass the driving test. So they are driving, they are able to drive. And then guess what? They are right now working at the laundromat. They're working. So that's really a great example of language access, how important it is.
Is there anyone else that would like to share? Before we go to the next question. Okay. So the next question is, how do you gather feedback from the communities that you're trying to serve to make sure you're serving them in a way that's beneficial to them and adds value? Do you have a mechanism in which you gather that information and then implement it?
So we have a few. We do have evaluation that we are working on where young people are being able to tell their story as a part of our evaluation. We also have some community advisory groups of young people. And this is one of my favorite things is because young people are going to say it like it is. And that's the most important piece. We don't need to, add the fun stuff on top. We need to say this experience was not it, Miss K. What did you just try to make me do? This needs to be something else somewhere else. And that's something that we really take to heart because we want to make sure that every experience that we're trying to connect a young person to is going to be meaningful and valuable to them. But also too, we want to know where we need to bridge in the community some of those additional resources to help to provide for some of those employers or some of those nonprofits, some of those organizations. We also have had some employer feedback surveys that we have gotten directly from employers, whether it's through calling, whether it's through one of our feedback forms, and really trying to get at what was the most helpful piece? What could we do better? What is it something that we need to provide a resource to? We need to work together a little bit more deeply. And then again, that young person's opinion on what happened really drives so much of how we change what's happening within the landscape of our communities and providing those opportunities for them. One of my favorite groups that we had, it was just a small group of young people and we were looking for feedback on the website. And one of the things that the young person said was like, wow, it doesn't look like a government website. And I was like, yes, we did something great there. They're like, it's colorful, it's young. And I was like, okay, take a look at the social media. And they're like, clearly a young person doesn't do this. And I was like, great. Glad I learned this. And they're like, well, this is what we want to see, and this is how we want to see it. And we're able to pretty immediately make that change. But if you're not ready to have a conversation with a group of young people who are going to say it like it is, and when I say y'all, sometimes I say it like it is, like, you really got to prepare yourself. Like sometimes I really need to go in there and I'm like, all right, I thought it was real cool. And clearly I am not. And that's okay. We can correct, what's happening here. And I really love that opportunity. And then also hearing from our community members who are hosting young people of saying, wow, I forgot what it is to break down a task for somebody who has never had a job before. I genuinely have heard, sometimes employers saying, I didn't understand. I needed to say, great job doing this. I didn't know I needed to give corrective feedback instead of just positive feedback, when in actuality, the young person thought they were doing a really good job of throwing out the most important documents in this business and accidentally shredding them, when in actuality, I was saying, good job for showing up on time and making sure that we're making those bridges. But to hear that in a survey or to hear that in a phone call from an employer, and then for a young person to say like, yeah, they were saying good job all the time. And so I just kept doing what I was doing. That makes a huge difference to close that loop and give that employer those resources to learn. When we're giving positive and corrective feedback, we want to make sure that we're very specific about the things that we are doing here, but also for the young person to say like, well, I felt really good that I was having, getting good feedback. And then for, a few months later for the young person to say after their experience has ended, oh, I learned that X, Y, and Z thing I was doing maybe was something I should have been doing at a different time, or I learned to advocate that this task is a little bit too hard for me and I need additional steps and I need additional help to be able to do this. And that's one of the ways that we're trying to make each of these experiences feel inclusive and really garner that feedback and really make sure that it's being seen in the program as immediately as we can.
Could you hear me? Could you hear me? Oh gosh. Okay. One of the, I guess, glorifying measures or metrics of working in a community radio station is that everyone is honest and and they're bluntly honest. And so oftentimes, which is good because I have a thick skin, so I can take it. But they just say it how it is. And if something really sucked, they tell us in not the nicest way, which is fine. And so we learn to really just move pretty quickly in certain things. And sometimes that is, we really didn't like that song. And they're pretty particular about certain things that they don't like. And they let us know very quickly. How we do it is obviously we listen to our audience, and we have two different audiences. We have the organizations that we work with and that we partner with and collaborate with, and they are their own, you know, entity. And so we have to respect them and their needs and their wants. And then we have the listeners, right? And really the listeners are the heart of the station. So often we have to sometimes counterbalance and really think hard before committing with an organization for something, especially if we know that our listeners are not going to be in alignment with that. So staying really true to our mission and our values has been something that really it's our North Star. It's the thing that guides us, and it's a thing that never lets us down. In terms of collecting data, it's usually very auditory. So we try to make it as easy as possible for folks. You know, we don't want them to like, you know, fill out surveys. They don't work half the time because people don't complete them. So, you know, we take the time to do voice notes and we transcribe those voice notes, and then we try to measure them in a way that makes sense for the station and then implement them as much as possible. I know that for some organizations, it's more difficult implementation, right? Especially if you're with a very small team and you're with limited resources like we are, because we are a 501c3. So we have very small amounts of money and also people to be able to carry those things, and just being honest with ourselves as an organization, like what can we implement, and being honest with our listeners too, like, hey, you know, that is not something that we can do now, but it's definitely an idea that we will move forward with maybe in the future. And I think that that honesty, that transparency is important, and that's relatable across any organization. That is not something that's only inherent to a radio station. I say that because oftentimes, you know, we hear organizations promise many things and then they fall flat on those promises, whether that is, you know, you have these metrics to meet in hiring certain people in certain cultures or groups, and you hire them, but then you're really not ready to handle the culture, you know, and the differences of that group of people. And so when we're talking about culture, we're talking about inclusion, let's really think hard about the promises that we are making to ourselves, to the people, to the employees, to our clients, right? If you are not in a place to hire people of diverse needs or diverse cultures, be honest with yourselves and say, you know what, that is a metric, that is a goal, that is something that I want to do, but do not bring folks into your organization that people are just not ready to support, right? Because at the end of the day, it just doesn't make the organization look good. We as an organization, we're very tiny, but one of the things that they were pretty much told, like, hey, you have no women. Like, why are there no women in the radio station? Like, what's going on? And so that quickly, you know, was something that resonated with the executive director, and he brought in more female voices, more diverse voices, people from different Caribbean countries. And so then it became a more robust board, but it took time to do that. He didn't do it automatically. He didn't do it right away because he knew that he just didn't have the infrastructure for them. So again, to go back to the question is, we take data, we analyze that data, and we implement as we can, and we're honest with ourselves and the people we serve.
So takeaways, be prepared to listen. If you ask the question, you might not get all positive feedback. And that's great. Anyone in the audience have a tool or mechanism that they use that's really successful that they're going to be brave enough to share with everyone?
My name is Albert Latoile, and I'm the marketing director at the Park Danforth in Portland. One topic that's not coming up very often is a group of people that are discriminated against quite frequently. That's older adults. I've only heard one comment over the last 2 days, and when ageism was brought up, the response from a person on the panel was, Well, yeah, we gotta remember older adults, they'd be great for part-time jobs and things like that. There are older adults, that are waiting to retire to do what they really wanted to do. So I was curious, I don't know if it applies to anybody on the panel, but is anybody doing anything to bring older adults into their workforce?
So I think it's a great question and a really important one because Maine is the oldest state in the country. I don't know if folks know that, but we have the highest average age. I think that that is definitely something that is on our minds. People are also retiring later. People are remaining in the workforce longer. And because of the economy, many people are coming out of retirement and coming back to work. So when we talk about workplace inclusivity, like I said, we're talking about a lot of different dynamics. We also know that because of factors like social isolation and like the fact that culturally we treat older adults differently in this country than in many other cultures, we know that there is a lot of social isolation happening. We know that that is a breeding ground for substance use disorder. We are in the process of sort of talking about complementary initiatives and ways that we can expand and ways that we can help companies who maybe start with recovery friendly workplace and that are interested in expanding inclusion in a lot of other different ways. I think that one way that people can really prioritize that is with their agency partnerships and sort of who are you working with. At Pine Tree, actually, we are doing some other work with the Foundation for Seacoast Health that is specific to healthy aging in the Seacoast region. But I think bringing that into workplaces looks like bigger conversations about inclusivity because one of the things that we've learned in our other projects in the healthy aging world is that age inclusivity benefits every age. So, for example, the AARP has an age-friendly communities initiative, which several, I can't remember the number, but a lot of towns in Maine and New Hampshire are taking part in. And that is one of their biggest messages is that if you make, for example, your cities and towns more accessible with an eye to older adults, you are making them more accessible for everyone. And so I think it's a larger inclusivity benefit when you think about that.
At Navitor, we have a lot of much older guides. It's a fear for us because there's all of this amazing wisdom and knowledge around hunting and fishing and recreating in the outdoor economy that with the gap, there's not a lot of young people that are learning it. And so what we've done is partnered with organizations like Educate Maine to create internship and apprenticeship programs. We have Master Maine Guides that are working with the BIPOC community to help them become registered Maine Guides. But for us, we actually favor the old timers because they tend to be funnier. They have so much knowledge, and the people that are coming from outside of Maine or to a new community that they're exploring, they just are like, yeah, I'm in good hands. So we really honor that, but we also want to make sure we transfer that knowledge to the younger guides that are coming in. So we really see that the greater differences, the better the experience is going to be on the platform overall and just in our community ecosystem.
Yeah, I love that question, actually. Thank you so much for bringing that up. It's something that we talk about a lot in the station. The executive director, the founder, he's still very much active and involved in the station. And actually, in my culture, elders are venerated. So we don't prescribe to it, is my point. We try to find people of all age groups. But jazz also seems to be something that the older generation really resonates with. So we're working in a project now where we're trying to get that information, that knowledge from our elders and understanding and appreciating jazz more. And we lean on them, honestly, for that information and really for other things, right? Like just recipes and music and enjoying life, right? Because their perspective in life is just so much different. And I think we can all use a new perspective. And so when we're thinking about our board, we're always looking for folks that have the time, have the knowledge, have the passion. We don't really look at the age so much as we look at their passion for jazz, for music in general. From a cultural perspective, I'm always asking that question, is our table diverse enough? Do we have everyone at the table? Is there people represented in different cultures and different age groups? Because if you are sitting in a silo, right, with the same age group and the same sort of, you're not really getting fresh ideas and really you're robbing your organization from talent and from value, right? And so I love that question. Thank you so much for bringing it up. And I hope that next year we have more information and more panels that really hit on that subject and talk more about how we can make work a little bit more easier and favorable for everyone, and that includes our elders.
Also really love that question, and one that thinking about some of the greatest pairings for career exploration have been with older Mainers in specific industries. So we had a young person who wanted to go into jewelry. I know no employers and nothing about really the jewelry world, and we were able to identify through one of our community partners, somebody who is a silversmith and was working on fine jewelry, like fine silver jewelry. And we were able to pair this young person almost in an apprentice type role where this young person was learning directly from this individual. We were able to pay them for their time. This young person continued with this employer afterwards and is the person who is going to continue the business afterwards. So that's that full circle there. But if that young person had not had a supportive adult who had a community connection, who understood the value of being with that individual and had that business, and now this person can rest assured, you know, in 2-3 years when they are ready to pass on to the next person, to this young person, that they understand and they have learned directly from them how they do their silversmithing, how they do their work, how they run their business, and it's going to continue and it's not just going to end with them. Some of those have been the most impactful experiences for young people, to be directly with that business owner and to be directly with that person. And that's something that we're always trying to look for, because having that one-on-one mentorship is one thing, but having that one-on-one mentorship then grow into something else is another piece that we really want to try to capture more. And I'm really glad that you brought this up, because this is something that oftentimes I think folks may not engage in the conversation in a meaningful way because they may not know. They may not know the right tool. They may not know the right thing to say. They may not know, but it's really important to make sure that this is the forefront of folks' minds, because that's about including that everybody within the table and everybody within their skill set and everybody within their different abilities, and making sure that they're letting the next person learn from them, and the next person learns from that person, and the next person learns from that person. And that's how some of our heritage industries don't die. And that's how some of our heritage industries get more young people into them, because they are able to pull from that. So thank you so much for saying that. And again, this young person who was able to go into the silversmithing, it really has been such a blossoming moment to see them from point A of, yeah, I wanted to do jewelry, but then seeing the value and seeing the wisdom and seeing that they could be a part of this and that this could be a career path for them. And then for that mentor to feel comfortable enough to really want that young person to carry it on afterwards. And then that young person to see that skill set in them, that's so important.
I just want to quickly touch base on flexibility as well. So if you are an interpreter working in the field, you have your, you can in charge of your own schedule. So that's why we have many, many older interpreters working with us. And honestly, I honor, or, you know, they have the more advanced language skills If you're thinking they are, let's say they're from Iraq and they are working their whole life in Arabic language, and when they come here, their Arabic language is substantially better than somebody a younger generation who learned Arabic language in their household, right? So what we're trying to do is to capture the language skills in our community. So if they want to work with us 2 hours per week, fine. If they want to work with us, just a couple times per week, that's okay too. So really giving them a flexibility of working, that will be very beneficial.
It's like you queued up the next section, next question that we have. So we talk a lot about systems keeping us separate. And so my next question for you all is, how do you systemically connect with other organizations so that you're able to make sure you are supporting your ecosystems and making sure that it lives beyond you in this position or this current DEI policy, let's say, or the current flow? How are you building it in so that this work isn't a pet project that's going to be cut? It's just how you now do business.
Well, I will say I'm really annoying and I will show up anywhere and talk to anybody about whatever it may be about the program. But I think on more of a macro lens, working with communities is one of the most important things that we can do to build for not only folks who are coming to Maine, not only folks who are aging in Maine, not only for folks who, have lived here, born and raised here, but it's really the most important thing for everybody to feel that sense of belonging, and knocking on a door and going over to the school and sponsoring the basketball game and creating that job opportunity for that young person or connecting them with an older mentor. That is the most important thing that can happen. So I am generally not at my desk. I am generally out in the community saying, hi, so I do this thing. Hi, so I do this thing. Hi, I brought a young person with me. Hi, young people, do you want to go tell your community about this, that, and the other? Young people also love doing that. A lot of the folks that I get the opportunity to work with really try to get at that exact piece of trying to gain that sense of belonging, trying to gain that sense of this is our community and we want to expand it. And for them to champion that and for them to feel empowered for that, for whether it's a participant of the program, whether it's an employer of the program, whether it's a mentor of the program, for them to feel comfortable to kind of inject that into all of the aspects of what they do has been one of the most amazing things. I mean, like I have heard of some communities who I haven't had a chance to visit yet, who are so thankful for this program or who are so thankful for the opportunity to connect with another business who's maybe in another county because that business may not be there, and being able to just learn from them or connect that resource, and the thankfulness of that sense of belonging and that comfort of being able to pick up the phone or go over to whoever it is and say like, hey, I'm looking for this thing, has been really, really touching and a really amazing part of this. And so for us to continue to champion connection and belonging is the biggest next step to make sure that this doesn't dissipate. Nobody wants to not feel like they belong. Nobody wants to feel that they need to go somewhere else in order to do something. Everybody wants to feel comfort in the place in which they are, and everybody wants to feel comfortable going into a new place. So the more that we can champion this with all of the folks who are a part of our programs, and we do this very intentionally as well, and making sure that everybody feels that they're proud of what they do and they're excited about what they do and they have passion and vision. I mean, I can talk about this forever and eternity. I really love doing it, but it's just one of those things of, I never thought in my own career that I would be able to do this as a part of my everyday. I never thought that I could share this with young people, share this with communities, and for them to do this on their own and have the tools to do it feels so incredible. But also I take that so so heavy of, we've provided this for you, you're championing it, thank you so much, and you can only take it further. I sometimes say the sky's the limit for, the opportunities that we may be able to provide for young people, but then I had a young person who's doing aeronautics and I said, well, nope, never mind, just kidding. So we say the sky is the limit, we now have to say outer space is really not even the limit also. But within your communities, we're so interconnected in one way or another. Maine is a small, big place. And you probably probably know somebody from somebody else's community and vice versa. And to just bring that belonging and that sense of connection together is so important. So as you continue to connect with each other during this conference, thinking about the different ways that you can plug into whichever various programs they are, or maybe not plug in, but learn more, that's just going to continue to deepen that sense of belonging and connection. And young people will benefit from that. Our older mentors will benefit from that. Our new community members will benefit from that no matter what.
So for us, we're a small team. I know I keep on saying that over and over again, and you're probably like, okay, we get it. But the truth is that, with small teams, it's quality versus quantity. It's building those relationships and really being all in those relationships, leaning into those relationships, and ensuring that we are providing the value, they can see the value and what we bring to the table. So I think for us, it's not so much overextending ourselves, promising things we probably can't deliver. For us, it's more, well, let's lean on these relationships that we have. Let's foster and nurture them. Let's provide systems within our processes that will allow us the freedom to then pursue other ventures, other projects, right? So systematizing as much as we can, automating things as much as we can on the inside, because we're just such a small team that we can't pick up the phone every single time, though we want to, we can't. And so being very realistic on what we can deliver, nurturing the relationships that we can deliver, so that then we can show up for them and also show up for our listeners. So for us, it's really just honing in on our partners and our listeners and giving them what they need. And that's what's helped us keep the lights on and help us be more successful.
For us, it's culture change over policy change. I think that's really what we're looking for. Policy change is great and it can be a wonderful tool, but meaningful sustainability of this is geared towards culture changes. So one of our recovery-friendly workplaces in Maine, Kennebunk Savings Bank, has a community of peer recovery leaders. When you work there, you have people who are identifying in the company saying, I'm a person in recovery, you can come talk to me about that. That's a culture piece. That's not written into policy. That is how they do things. My employer, Pine Tree Institute, when you see a job opening from us, at the bottom, it says applicants with criminal records are encouraged to apply. That's part of our culture, is that if you came and applied to work with us and you had a theft charge from 10 years ago when you were in active addiction and you're in recovery now, that's something we can talk about and negotiate. That's not something that we rule out. So that's part of our culture. I think that when you talk about policy change, that can be rolled back and that can be changed. The other piece for us is partnership. So I think a lot about succession planning. I think a lot about our, what happens if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, or as my boss says, if he wins the lottery tomorrow, because he's just not as dark of a person as I am, I guess. But we could disappear. We could go away. Programs that are under nonprofits are a dime a dozen, and initiatives like this are subject to external forces. So maybe we disappear, but if we've built you a partnership with your local recovery center, that is now part of your agency's partnerships. And so partnering with communities and programs that may outlive you, I think is really important, and making sure that if your program disappears, somebody else has another connection or another network of connections that can help support the culture change that you're building.
I see partnerships in two ways. One, for us is recruitment. I love to go to local school district to talk to young folks. So I have done that in the past. So to talk to the high school students to present the career path of becoming an interpreter. I think that's I think it's a theme of this conference, to be honest, to engage minority youth and immigrant youth. So that's what we have been doing. We talk to the young people and give them the option or the career path of becoming interpreter. And another way of partnership I see is obviously with our clients that we have been working with and potentially will be working with in the future. So we are here providing a consultative approach. We hear your needs, your expectations in language access, and we will work with you to make sure either I want you to feel comfortable and well-versed when using our services, whether it's on-site services or it's on-demand services, on-demand interpreting services, or if it's document translations. We are here to hear your need and expectation and make sure that we're delivering what you need. And I also want to give a shout out to Jeremy over there. After this meeting, if you wanted to talk more about our services, please find that guy, Jeremy. Okay, we're at the table 8, so definitely come to visit us after this session.
Thank you. So one of the things you will inevitably hear somebody say in Maine, if you're looking for a bookkeeper, a plumber, or whatever, is somebody will say, "Oh, I got a guy." And this is important because historically, if you're talking to a white person in Maine and you ask them for a resource, the guy could be a gal, but they'll still call her a guy, is going to be white. And so one of the things that we did at Navitor is we said, okay, we can't do this. We need to find, we're getting our first bookkeeper. Okay, it needs to be a person of color. We are, we have our taxes. We have this. Let's deliberately, strategically, and intentionally look for those businesses and hire them and refer them and have them become a part of your DNA, so that should you go away or should the initiative or the money go away, those relationships stay in place and they're built. And once they're built, usually they, stay earned and stay connected. So we have just 14 minutes left and we're right up against lunchtime, which I know my belly's getting grumbly. So I don't want to keep beyond, but I did want to open it up for just a question for anyone on the panel about how they are in the marketplace, bringing inclusion to the community. You now have at least 5 resources that maybe you didn't have before on how you can access diversity and inclusion and make your workplace or your community or your personal life more diverse. So any questions for our panelists before we break for lunch?
Thank you. Hi, I'm Rebecca. I'm from MEMIC. So are these lovely ladies with me. And I am also a person in recovery. So I'm very glad to see you here on this panel. Yes, last week I turned 7 years sober. Thank you. Not why I took the mic, but figured I might as well. I was wondering if you could talk more about what recovery-friendly workplaces look like and what the initiatives you support actually look like.
Can you hear me? Congratulations. Love to hear that. So what they actually look like, that's a great question. So we have in Maine about 25 declared recovery-friendly workplaces that are designated, and we have many, many more pending and in the process. But what an RFW looks like is, again, that twofold support. So support for the employees that you have that are impacted by substance use disorder and strategic engagement of people who are struggling with substance use disorder or impacted in some way. So some examples of that. We've really had the honor in developing this program. So RFW as an initiative came out of the state of New Hampshire in 2018. It was Governor Sununu's initiative. We've had the honor in Maine, having just gotten our funding last April, and being able to come in and acknowledge employers that were doing this before it was a thing. So we certainly did not invent this concept, but an example of that is employers. So we have an employer we work with whose call center is in the same plaza as a recovery center. He was very intentional about hiring people in recovery. One of those things where he hired somebody, he saw what an amazing asset they were, he saw their work ethic, and he wanted to make sure that he was giving a fair chance at employment to people in the community. So he would walk over to that recovery center when he had employees struggling, talk about what was going on and get resources and support. The way that it looks is really raising the level of training and awareness in your company and raising the level of supports and resources for your employees. So that can be everything from, making sure that all of your employees have a list of resources that are local, all the way to you develop a committee in your company that runs your recovery-friendly workplace initiative, and you are reviewing policy and protocol. So another example of an initiative, the sand and stone and gravel industry, or mining is a big part of this, by occupation nationally has suffered the most overdose deaths. And so that industry has really taken a leadership role in developing a very industry specific opiate program, because what they found was they had a lot of people who would get injured in their roles who would be offered opiates. So they did things like developing a fact sheet for their clients, or I'm sorry, for their employees. When you go to the doctor, here's questions you can ask if you're being prescribed opiates. Here is a guide to alternative pain management strategies. So that's another example. It really can be across the board, and it's very, very customizable, but we're seeing new kind of examples every day. And we're seeing industries take this in different directions. Another example is in one of our recovery-friendly workplaces that has their AED machine right next to their Narcan. And they have new employees, they walk them around and say, here are our life-saving devices. That's normalizing, that's reducing stigma. That's saying, these are the things we have in our organization that if we have a medical emergency, because we absolutely work with employers who have had overdoses on site. We really believe that initiatives can be A to Z, they can be zero cost. So a company can come in and say, we have $0 to spend on this initiative, and we can say, great, here are the services in your area. You can make up a list here and have that for every employee, and you can call us when you have an issue come up, because we're free as well. So you're going to call a Justin or statewide recovery advisor, and you can ask him about an issue that's going on with a staff. Or you can call our statewide business advisor and you can ask about having a tough conversation with your employee that you're worried might have relapsed. So it can be anything from a full committee that's going to look at policy and change things to just making sure your staff know where the resources are.
And Molly, this is all free, right?
All free. Yes.
Excellent. So I am going to end us a little bit early. That way, if you do want to come up and chat with folks that are on the panel, but we told you about a lot of things that we do. So I'm going to ask us to simply say how or why people should see us. What is it that they should see us for? So for Navitor, see us if you'd like a local guide.
For career exploration, come see me if you want to help bridge the gap between opportunity and actual experience.
Well, see us if you have any language service needs. Let's get together and break some language barriers together.
If you want to have fun. If you want to have fun, or if you want to partner with us so that we can bring in a little bit more flavor into your life, please contact me and we will make that happen for you.
If you want to build a recovery-friendly workplace, come see me or come visit us at our booth in the ballroom.